Chosen one, do you remember the moment? Not just a bad day, not just misfortune, but that moment when the world cracked under your feet and everything you thought was stable began to dissolve. You know the one. The air felt heavier. Time moved slower. And your breath, your body, your voice didn't belong to you anymore. It felt like something broke. It looked like loss. It sounded like silence. But what if that moment wasn't your collapse? What if it was your awakening? You've replayed it, haven't you? In your mind, again and again, trying to understand why, trying to make sense of the void that opened, of the betrayal, of the exit, of the endings you never asked for. But what if the question wasn't why did it happen? What if the real question is, what was born inside of me that day? We don't always know when the sacred enters. Sometimes it walks in through pain. Sometimes it shows up wrapped in thunder and smoke, not light. And sometimes it's not there to save you. It's there to strip you of everything that no longer serves, of masks, of roles, of beliefs that were never yours to carry. That day, the one you thought ruined everything, was actually the day you were introduced to the real you. Not the one shaped by others, not the one pleasing, bending, performing, the you underneath all of that, the one who had to be revealed through the wreckage. And that's the paradox, isn't it? The collapse was the door, the silence was the signal, and the ache was the voice of your soul trying to wake you up. That moment didn't just happen. It was marked. It was placed like a sacred key in the timeline of your life. And your spirit knew it long before you did. Even now, as you read this, you feel it, don't you? That tug, that memory, not of the pain, but of the moment your soul flared awake, because something in you activated when everything went wrong. You didn't die, you didn't vanish, you didn't fail. You were shaken open, so that what was buried and could rise, so that what was forgotten could return, so that what was always meant to be could finally begin. You still think about it, don't you? That hour, that word, that message, that goodbye, that door, you still hear the echo, but now maybe you're starting to hear it differently, not as the scream of loss but as the invitation of destiny. Because, chosen one, there are some things that can't be taught with light. They must be remembered in darkness. And you remembered. Not with your mind, not with logic, but with something deeper, something ancient, something true. You remembered the sound of your soul in a silent room. You remembered that the world's applause cannot heal what the spirit needs to unlearn. You remembered what it felt like to stand at the center of nothing and still feel something sacred beating inside your chest. That day broke the illusion. It severed the contract. It ended the simulation, because before that, you were functioning, but not feeling. You were existing, but not embodying. And so life had to interrupt you, not to punish, but to reveal. And once the revealing begins, it doesn't stop. You started asking questions you'd never dared before. You began noticing things you used to overlook. You pulled away from what once fed you, but now felt like poison. That wasn't regression. That was alignment. Because when the soul activates, the skin of your old life begins to feel tight, and no matter how hard you try, you can't squeeze yourself back into it. That's what you've been sensing, isn't it? The discomfort, the restlessness, the knowing that nothing will ever be the same. You've tried to return. You've tried to rebuild, but the tools don't fit your hands anymore. And that's because you are no longer who you were before that day. That version of you completed its mission, and now, here you are, standing in the in-between, the no longer, and the not yet, still carrying pieces of what shattered, still waiting for clarity that hasn't fully come. But even here, especially here, you are transforming, because this is the wilderness where the real you is formed. This is the cocoon where false narratives melt. This is the sacred pause between death and resurrection, and you, chosen one, you are already rising, not with noise, but with knowing. Not with answers, but with alignment. Not with speed, but with depth. This is not a chapter you skip through. This is a frequency you become. You may still ache for the life you lost. You may still reach back, hoping it will make sense again. But that ache, that reach, it's just memory rubbing against your destiny. It's the tension between what was and what will be. And that tension is holy. So don't run from it. Sit in it, feel it, honor it. Have you ever felt that the moment everything fell apart was the same moment something ancient woke up in you? If this message found that buried knowing, the one you tried to silence, don't scroll past it. Comment below. That was not the end. That was my beginning. Let the world hear the voice you once buried, and if this resonated deeper than words, subscribe. Because this space isn't here to entertain. It's here to remind you who you were before life tried to make you. Forget, you're not late, you're right on time. Let's rise together in truth, not in hiding. Because in this exact pressure, your new form is being forged. Your next timeline is organizing itself. Your deeper voice is finding its rhythm, and your true path, the one no one could plan for you, is revealing itself. One breath at a time. So breathe right here, right now, because no matter how chaotic the moment was, it wasn't the end. It was the threshold. And now you walk through it. Chosen one. There was a shift. You didn't notice it at first. It was quiet, like most sacred things are. No announcement, no thunder, just a subtle moment when the life you once clung to stopped feeling like home. You stood in the same room, spoke to the same people, lived the same routines, but something was different. You were different, not on the outside, not yet, but inside, a quiet rupture had begun, and no matter how hard you tried to pretend otherwise, you could feel it. The disconnection, the dullness, the silent scream of your spirit whispering, "This isn't who you are anymore." It didn't make sense. Nothing had visibly changed, but your soul knew. It always knows. And once that knowing begins, it doesn't unknow. You can try to distract yourself. You can try to play the part a little longer, but you'll feel it in your body, in your energy, in the way laughter doesn't land the way it used to, in the way old comforts start tasting like dust. You'll feel it in the places you once felt seen and now feel invisible. You'll feel it in conversations that used to excite you and now feel like noise. Because that day, the day everything went wrong, something didn't just collapse around you, something awakened within you, and that awakening refuses to coexist with the illusion. You can't unknow your truth. You can't fit into the mold you've outgrown. You can't keep pretending that the roles they gave you are enough to hold who you are becoming. And it hurts, doesn't it? This unspoken grief, this strange mourning, not for a person, not even for a place, but for a version of you that can't come with you anymore. That's the cost of awakening, the shedding, the surrender, the solitude. Because when you say yes to your soul, you often say goodbye to your comfort. You start hearing things others don't hear, seeing cracks in the narrative, feeling the weight of what was once invisible. You speak and no one understands you, not because you're incoherent, but because you're now speaking a language they've forgotten, the language of truth. And that truth, it doesn't wait for applause. It doesn't adjust itself to be palatable. It doesn't fit inside the cages of normal. It just is, raw, clear, unapologetic. And that's who you've become. Whether you realized it or not, you crossed the threshold. You stepped beyond the veil of imitation and into the current of your real becoming. You are no longer a reflection of your past. You are a resonance of something timeless. You are no longer the one who molds to the room. You are the room. And it can be lonely here, this space between what was and what's next, this spiritual hallway with no name. But that space is sacred. It is the womb of your next identity. It is the fire that tempers your clarity. It is the storm that scours away the residue of who you are no longer. Don't rush this. Don't force form where the divine is still shaping the void. You are not lost. You are being reformatted. You are not stuck. You are being resequenced. And yes, the old life may still try to pull at your sleeves. Old versions of you may whisper, "It was easier there." But easier is not the measure anymore. Real is, and you, chosen one, have tasted what is real now. You've seen the mask slip. You've heard the quiet lies in systems and structures. You've felt the absence of truth in places that promised purpose. And now that you know, you can't go back. You won't go back, because your soul has declared this time, I choose alignment over acceptance. This time, you don't negotiate your light to fit inside someone else's shadow. This time you don't barter your energy for validation. This time, you don't apologize for what your spirit knows. You walk forward, not always confidently, but consistently, not always certain, but surrendered. And that is the key, because the universe doesn't require your perfection, it requires your participation. It requires your willingness to walk, even when the road is invisible, to speak, even when your voice trembles, to believe, even when nothing makes sense, except the fire burning quietly in your bones. You are not becoming someone new. You are unearthing someone ancient, the one who remembers, the one who signed this assignment long before breath ever kissed your lungs, the one who said yes to the fire, to the forgetting, to the journey that would lead you back to yourself. That version is awakening now, with every truth you speak, with every lie you release, with every step you take toward what resonates. And that resonance, it's your compass now. It's how you know what's sacred and what's surface. It's how you navigate through noise and find signal. It's how you leave behind the performance and reclaim your presence. So yes, it may feel like you're walking alone. Yes, it may feel like no one sees what you see. Yes, it may ache in your chest when you realize the world you knew doesn't know you anymore. But chosen one, you are not alone. You are just ahead. And those who are meant to walk with you, they are not behind. They are awakening, and your walk, your fire, your truth is their signal. So keep going, even when your hands tremble, even when your breath catches, even when your body remembers the cost of being misunderstood. Because every step forward is a declaration to the universe that says, I remember who I am and I refuse to go back. Chosen one, by now you've realized. It wasn't just one thing that broke, it was everything, bit by bit, layer by layer. And for a while, you tried to hold it all together. You patched holes with hope. You smiled through the tremors. You told yourself, this is just a phase. But deep down, you knew this wasn't just a season, it was a summons. The life you built around your survival could no longer support the weight of your becoming. And so it began, not with your consent, but with your soul's agreement. Everything that was not aligned had to be stripped away, not to harm you, but to honor who you were becoming, because the version of you that was emerging could not be birthed inside the scaffolding of illusion. You weren't made to be a placeholder in a life too small. You were made to carry something ancient, something true, and truth cannot live inside of lies, not even beautiful ones. So yes, things unraveled, people left, roles crumbled, plans dissolved, but all of it was an answer to the prayer you didn't remember praying, the one your soul whispered when your mouth was still silent, awaken me, whatever it takes. And the universe listened, not with softness, but with fire, because fire is how gold is revealed, because storms are how the sky clears, because collapse is how clarity finally has room to speak. So when everything fell, you didn't fail, you were freed, and yes, it hurt. How could it not? You were shedding parts of yourself you once called identity. You were mourning dreams that once gave you hope. You were letting go of futures that once kept you moving forward. But all of those things, they belonged to an earlier version of you, a necessary version, a sacred version, but not your final form. You were outgrowing the shell. You were reaching for the root. You were remembering that you were never here to simply make it. You were here to awaken, and awakening is messy. It disrupts, it disorients, it dismantles everything that is false. It invites you into a silence so vast, you begin to hear your soul again. It invites you into a loneliness so deep, it reveals what connection actually means. It invites you into a surrender so total, you stop asking for the old life to return and start asking for the real one to begin. That's where you are now, isn't it? In the real, no more pretending, no more performing, no more bending yourself into a shape that fits someone else's story. You've chosen presence over perception, truth over comfort, purpose over pattern, and yes, that choice costs something. It costs people, it costs roles, it costs everything that cannot meet you at your new frequency. But what you gain you, the you that no longer silences intuition, the you that no longer betrays alignment for approval, the you that no longer trades authenticity for acceptance. And that version, they are dangerous. Not in destruction, but in truth. Because truth shakes things. Truth shines without trying. Truth awakens what others spend lifetimes trying to bury, and you've become that mirror. Some will come closer, some will run. Both responses are a reflection, not of you, but of where they are in their own remembrance. Your job isn't to fix it. Your job is to remain anchored in what you now know, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's lonely, even when it's misunderstood. Because chosen one, you weren't made to be understood. You were made to be true, and truth isn't always comfortable, but it is always magnetic. That's why the old life couldn't hold you. That's why the structures buckled. That's why everything had to fall, because the foundation you were standing on wasn't built for the fire you carry now. It couldn't hold the weight of your next becoming, so the universe cleared the ground, not to destroy you, but to prepare you. And now you walk on sacred soil, where nothing false can stay, where only the aligned can follow, where your breath doesn't ask permission to be full. You've earned this clarity, you've burned for it, and now you rise, not as someone new, but as someone true. Chosen one. There comes a moment, not loud, not dramatic, but final. It's the moment you stop reaching backward, you stop rehearsing the loss, you stop asking, why did it all fall apart? And instead, you breathe. You look around at the ashes not with despair, but with stillness, because something in you has shifted. The war inside is quieting. The need to be who you once were is fading. The grief still lingers. Yes, but it no longer controls your breath. This is where silence becomes sacred. This is where you begin to hear something deeper than thought. The hum beneath the ache, the voice beneath the noise, and it whispers, not with urgency, but with clarity. This is what alignment feels like. You are no longer rushing to rebuild the old life. You are no longer begging for doors that were divinely closed. You are no longer asking to return because something inside you knows you don't belong back there anymore. That version of you, it, was holy, but it is complete. It served its purpose. It carried you far, but it was never meant to walk this next stretch, so you lay it down with reverence, not regret, with blessing, not bitterness, because now you can see the truth of it all. The unraveling wasn't punishment, it was precision. Every thread that came undone was a thread that tethered you to limitation. And now, piece by piece, you are being rewoven into something that can hold divine weight. Not just survive it, but radiate through it. You're beginning to recognize the patterns, aren't you? How everything that left made space. How everything that broke revealed what was real. How every moment of silence became a sanctuary. This isn't the silence of emptiness. This is the silence of return to your essence, to your knowing, to the frequency that was always yours, but buried beneath expectation and noise. And here, in this silence, something ancient is taking root. A sense of stability that doesn't come from certainty, but from trust. A kind of clarity that doesn't require answers, but honors the question. A power that isn't loud, but unmoving. This is what the world never taught you. That stillness is not weakness. That quiet doesn't mean absence. That solitude is not the same as isolation. The truth is, chosen one, you were never alone, even in your darkest hour, even when no one called, even when no one understood the tremble in your chest. The divine was closer than breath. It was in the cracking. It was in the aching. It was in the exact moment you thought everything was over, that heaven whispered, "Now we begin." And now you walk with a different rhythm. You're no longer trying to prove your worth. You are your worth. You no longer chase the light. You carry it. You no longer perform alignment. You live it. And that living, it's costly. It means leaving things behind. Not just people, but patterns. Not just structures, but stories. Not just habits, but identities that never truly belonged to you. You feel the difference now. You feel when something is aligned. Doesn't pull, it doesn't pressure, it doesn't distort your peace just to earn your presence. Aligned things meet you in the middle of your truth. They don't ask you to shrink to fit. They rise to match your frequency. And your frequency? It's different now, sharper, softer, truer. You've shed the noise, you've released the roles, you've remembered your rhythm, and now you move through the world not to be seen, but to see, not to be accepted, but to accept yourself. Not to impress, but to imprint. Because wherever you walk now, something shifts. You've become a tuning fork for remembrance. Others may not know what it is, but they feel it. They feel something awaken near you. They feel something loosen, something soften. That's not an accident. That's alignment in motion. You've become a signal, and yes, it's quiet, but it's unmistakable. You no longer need to speak as much. Your presence speaks for you. You no longer need to convince. Your clarity confirms. This is not ego. This is embodiment. This is what happens when someone says yes to the sacred path again and again, even when it hurts. This is what happens when someone dares to stay in the silence long enough for the truth to arrive. And now you're arriving, not into perfection, but into purpose, not into certainty, but into surrender. And surrender is not giving up. It's giving in to what was always trying to reach you. It's stepping back into divine order. It's moving in sync with the pulse of your deeper knowing. And that pulse is growing stronger now. You can feel it in your bones, in your breath, in the space between your thoughts. It no longer asks, "Will I be okay?" It knows, "I already am." Because this is what alignment births. A trust that isn't shaken by storms, a peace that doesn't depend on outcomes, a fire that doesn't flicker just because the wind picked up. You are steady now, not because the world is quiet, but because you've learned how to carry stillness inside you. And that stillness, it's not passivity, it's power. The kind that doesn't need to shout to be felt, the kind that moves mountains without lifting a hand, the kind that walks into a room and makes the air shift simply by existing in truth. That's what you've become, and you didn't get here by chance. You got here by choosing the path again and again, when it cost you, when it hurt, when it asked for more than you thought you had. But you gave it anyway. And now the universe recognizes your frequency, and things are shifting quietly, powerfully, perfectly. Because now, chosen one, you're not just aligned, you are the alignment. Chosen one, you may not have realized it in the moment. But that stillness you felt, that quiet presence in the center of the storm, that wasn't emptiness. That was God watching. That was heaven listening. That was your spirit, for the first time in a long time, returning to itself without interruption. You weren't being ignored. You were being witnessed. You weren't abandoned. You were being anointed. But not in the way the world recognizes, not with ceremony, not with a crowd, but in the secret place, in the moment where only you and the divine remained. It felt like isolation, but it was initiation. Because chosen one, every prophet walks alone before they speak. Every light must know the dark before it becomes visible to others. And you've been walking that corridor of silence, and the longer you stayed there, the clearer your steps became. Because in silence, the ego dissolves, the noise fades, and what's left? Truth, pure, raw, unshakable. And that truth began to grow inside you, not as an idea, but as identity. It didn't need validation. It didn't need proof. It just was. That's why everything else began to fall away. People, places, patterns. They weren't being taken from you. They were disintegrating in the presence of truth. Because truth doesn't coexist with performance. It doesn't fit inside manipulation. It doesn't rest inside comfort built on forgetting. And so now you find yourself here, not empty but clear, not alone, but accompanied by something greater. Your silence has become your strength. Your quiet has become your compass. You don't rush like you used to. You wait, you listen, you discern. Because now your timing isn't set by fear. It's governed by alignment. You no longer chase opportunity. You recognize invitation, and you answer only when it resonates. That's what the silence taught you. To move from truth, not trauma. To speak from stillness, not from noise. To act from presence, not pressure. And now you walk slower, but farther. You speak less, but with more weight. You show up not to be seen, but to see. And in doing so, your life becomes the offering. Not the words you speak, not the image you project, but the field you carry. That field, it's holy, because it was built in silence, forged in stillness, tested in fire. You don't have to explain how you got here. You are the explanation. Every step you took in the dark became light for the path ahead. And now that light is not just for you, it's for them, for the ones still in the silence, still in the breaking, still asking if they'll ever rise again. You are their answer. So stay steady, stay soft, stay sacred, because the world will recognize you not by your voice, but by your vibration. And chosen one, yours shakes the ground. Chosen one, you've made it through the fire, you've stood in the silence, you've faced the unraveling, and now something is different. It doesn't scream, it doesn't demand attention, but it moves through everything you touch. It's your presence, your energy, your light. You no longer just remember who you are. You walk in it, not as someone searching, but as someone who knows. And that knowing, it shows. You may not see it, but others feel it. They notice the calm in your voice, the stillness in your gaze. They don't always have the language for it, but they feel safe near you. They trust you with truths they haven't spoken aloud. They lean in without knowing why, because your frequency speaks before your words do. And what does it say? It says, this one has risen. This one has passed through the storm and did not lose themselves. This one remembers. That's the weight you carry now. Not a burden, but a signal, a vibrational imprint of survival, of clarity, of divine resilience. Not everyone will be able to name it, but the right ones will recognize it instantly, because you're not just healed, you're healing. Your alignment calls others forward, not with force, with vibration. That's what people misunderstand about chosen ones. They think we're here to fix things, to save people, to explain truth, but you now know you're not here to fix. You're here to be, to embody, to stand as a living reminder that awakening is possible, even in the middle of fire, even in the middle of loss, even in the middle of silence. And that kind of reminder can't be taught. It has to be lived, and you've lived it. Now your life speaks for itself. You don't owe proof. You don't owe performance. You don't owe anyone the story of how you got here, because your very presence is a transmission. And that transmission, it's rewriting timelines, softly, quietly, but undeniably. Every time you walk into a space and refuse to shrink, every time you speak your truth without tremble, every time you honor your boundaries without guilt, you open a door for someone else to do the same. This is how the light spreads, not through noise, but through alignment. And that alignment, it didn't come easily. It came through the days you almost gave up. It came through the nights you cried without witness. It came through the moments you doubted your own pulse. But you stayed. You stayed with the ache. You stayed with the silence. You stayed with the sacred not knowing until clarity returned. And now the universe trusts you with more, with deeper wisdom, with clearer sight, with stronger frequency. And because of that, you're becoming magnetic. Not because you try, but because you are. You've stopped chasing things, and now they come to you. Not because of strategy, but because of sovereignty. Because truth always draws truth, and light always calls to light. So yes, you may find more people entering your field. Yes, you may feel seen in ways you never asked for. Yes, you may notice how rooms shift when you step into them. That's not ego, that's energy. You've become a tuning fork for remembrance. You don't have to say anything special. You just have to stay true. And what isn't true, it can't stay. You've already felt this. The way people fall away when your light gets too steady. The way opportunities dissolve when they require you to dim. That's not loss. That's clarity. You are not meant to twist, to fit. You are meant to resonate, and what resonates will remain. What doesn't will exit. This is the sacred filter of your frequency. And it doesn't need permission. It simply is. You are no longer molding yourself. You are no longer adjusting your truth to protect someone else's comfort. Because you now understand your comfort matters, your clarity matters, your energy matters, and how you use it determines what you attract. So you use it with intention. You speak only when the room can hold the weight of your voice. You create only when your hands are steady in truth. You share only what has passed through the fire of your own becoming. This is your offering now, not just your story, but your being, and the world needs it. Not the loudness, not the performance, but the quiet, unwavering presence of someone who has risen, of someone who walks aligned, of someone who doesn't need to explain their glow, because the glow speaks, and it says, "This one remembers, chosen one." There is something else you must know. Light, once awakened, does not rest. It calls to the forgotten places. It shines even when it's inconvenient. It exposes what can no longer stay hidden. And because you carry it now, truly, fully, your life will ask more of you, not in effort, but in integrity. Because your light is not decoration, it is declaration. It says, "I have come through truth, and I will not trade that truth for comfort again." That's why you feel so different now, not just stronger, but clearer. Like you can sense dishonesty before it speaks, like you can feel distortion without needing explanation, like you no longer fit in rooms where truth is not welcome. That's not arrogance, that's frequency, that's discernment, that's the cost of alignment. Because when you walk in full remembrance, the world no longer engages with your mask. It meets your essence. And essence? It triggers, it activates, it calls people forward or causes them to retreat. You don't need to take it personally. It's not about rejection. It's about resonance. And not everyone is ready for what you carry. Some will come close and feel inspired. Others will come close and feel exposed. Let both happen. Your job is not to manage their reactions. Your job is to remain aligned. Because your light is not here to be softened. It's here to be trusted. Trusted to walk where others are afraid to look. Trusted to speak when the silence becomes betrayal. Trusted to remain when everything else begins to shake. And yes, that kind of light can feel heavy, especially when no one else around you is holding. The same charge, but you weren't given this weight without preparation. The pain you passed through, that was training. The silence you endured, that was initiation. The isolation you survived, that was purification. So now you don't question if you're ready. You recognize that readiness is not a feeling, it's a frequency, and you are already in it. So walk accordingly. No more looking sideways for confirmation. No more shrinking your truth to soothe their fear. No more waiting for permission to be who your soul already is. You are the permission. You are the proof. You are the frequency that shifts the atmosphere. So hold it in quiet spaces, hold it in loud rooms, hold it when no one thanks you, hold it when your hands shake, because light like yours isn't here for applause, it's here for impact. And that impact, it's already unfolding. Chosen one, look around you now. This is not the world you once knew, and more importantly, it's not the self you once were. You don't carry the same silence, you don't move with the same weight, you don't breathe with the same fragility. What you've been through, the falling, the tearing, the remembering, it all brought you here. But here is not the finish line. It's the beginning, because survival was never the point. Awakening was. And now that you've remembered, now that your soul is aligned and your light is steady, you must decide, what will you do with what you carry? Because you didn't survive just to stay hidden. You didn't rise just to blend in. You didn't remember just to sit in stillness forever. You carry a fire now, not to burn, but to illuminate, not to destroy, but to disrupt the darkness that clings to those still asleep. Your existence is a message. Your walk is a reminder. Your very breath holds frequency, and the world needs that desperately, not because you are perfect, but because you are true. And truth, real, embodied, unshaken truth, is rare. It's magnetic, it's clarifying, it's catalytic. You've seen it already, haven't you? How your presence alone causes things to shift. How your words, even the quiet ones, ripple with weight. How people hesitate before they speak to you, not out of fear, but because something in you mirrors something in them they've forgotten. You're not just walking anymore. You're leading, even if no one calls it that. Even if no one hands you a title or a stage or applause. You lead through energy, through presence, through alignment. And now, that alignment becomes responsibility, not to perform, but to remain, to hold your field steady, to speak when it's time, to stay silent when the noise demands reaction, to keep rising, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's lonely, even when it costs you what others call comfort. You were not called to comfort, you were called to clarity, and clarity requires discipline, not of effort, but of essence. You no longer get to entertain what drains you. You no longer get to pretend. You don't feel what you feel. You no longer get to deny the assignments etched into your bones. You are here for something more, not in fame, but in frequency, not in recognition, but in remembrance. And remembrance comes with movement. You've been moved by loss. You've been moved by pain. Now it's time to be moved by truth, the kind that demands you speak, that calls you to show up, fully present. That won't let you stay quiet when something inside you knows it's time to act, time to step, time to ignite. You are not invisible anymore. You are not broken anymore. You are not searching anymore. You are here, awake, anchored, ready. And the world may not understand what you are, but it will feel you, it will respond to you, it will be disrupted by you. And that disruption, it's sacred, because systems only shift when someone refuses to stay asleep inside them. You are that refusal. You are the reminder. You are the sacred interruption that says, no more shrinking, no more pretending, no more forgetting. That's why everything had to fall apart, so that when you spoke again, it wasn't from the voice they gave you, it was from the voice you reclaimed. The one born before your body, the one sealed in your breath, the one encoded in your silence. And now, as you walk forward, nothing stays the same. Even the ground feels different because you've stopped trying to walk someone else's path. You are writing your own, and the steps you take echo differently. They carry memory, they carry energy, they carry the unmistakable. Sound of someone who's been to the edge and returned whole. So what now? Now you protect the frequency you've become. You filter your yes. You honor your no. You move only in alignment, never in obligation. You stop apologizing for your light. And when the world tries to pull you back into numbness, you smile with knowing, because you remember the silence that taught you everything, and you refuse to betray it again. You don't need a script. You don't need permission. You don't need proof, because the proof is you. You walking into rooms and making the energy bend. You holding space without effort. You hearing what isn't said. You becoming the version of yourself that once felt impossible. That's the miracle. That's the transmission. That's the real reason everything went wrong. So, that everything sacred could finally go right, not in the way the world defines it, but in the way only your soul understands. You are not just healed, you are holy. You are not just conscious, you are consecrated. You don't just carry light, you are the light. And this is the moment you accept the weight of that, not as a burden, but as a blessing. Because chosen one, you didn't come this far to dim. You didn't survive just to watch. You didn't awaken just to whisper. You were born to speak truth through your life, to tear down illusion with your clarity, to be the reason someone else finally says, if they could walk through it, so can I. So do it. Be the storm, be the stillness after, be the memory that activates others. And walk, bold, grounded, glowing, because the universe is watching, not to judge, but to align. And now that you're in alignment, everything is responding. Watch what happens next.